Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a huge edition of the SuperCoach AFL live show, heading into round 10, the live teams, and we've already had a quick peek at them and heard a couple of things today that are going to have huge ramifications on our SuperCoach teams this weekend. Joining me is Matt Forrest. Foz, how are you taking it? I know even yesterday when the teams first came out, the Hawks dropped one on us and then the Blues today, so they're coming at us from all directions.
Yeah, it's the Blues one, especially big news in Tom De Koning being out. Obviously, it has huge ramifications not only for Carlton but also for our SuperCoach teams. If you have him, even if you don't, it gives you a little bit of a leg up. But there's going to be a lot of trade reversals tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've just spent the last hour. Well, yeah, probably is an hour. Trying to come up with different versions of trades that can sort of try and cover me. And I think I do want to get Max Gawn in somehow. It's just killing me not having him, and this sort of is an excuse to try and make it happen. But trying to come up with the permutations, and I had one that was absolutely perfect, but I was out by about $300. So I've got to try and come up with something different. So yeah, it's been a stressful time. Fortunately, the Gold Coast Hawthorn game tonight doesn't affect us too much. As I said, the teams came out yesterday, and the big one there was Henry Hustwaite. Only lasted the 3 weeks. Back out to the VFL after he was subbed off last week, so he's made maybe 50 grand or something like that. Do you think there's much chance we'll see him again anytime soon?
No, I don't. I don't think so. That's not what I want to hear. And I'm a Hawks fan, and I got sucked in. We have another Hawks fan in the office who got me into him. I didn't really want to touch him because I knew he was a 4-week buy, and I knew that I'd be selling him as soon as Connor Nash came back. And he hasn't even lasted the 4 weeks. But I got sucked in because there was no one else, and now I'm just regretting. It's just another donut that's going to be on my bench for the rest of the year.
Yeah, they're starting to pile up, unfortunately, especially in the midfield. We'll, when we get through the teams, hopefully we'll see a couple of names make the cut. But yeah, with him not there, it's a bit of a worry, and that's where with some of these trades, I'm probably having to do maybe keep some players that I was planning on getting rid of because we just. I need to find a way to maybe get Sardell Hawley. I think he's the number one rookie target for the week and try and get him into the midfield rather than in the defence because that's where I need cover on field. And it might mean keeping someone like Riley Bice, who I was prepared to trade out given his break-evens pushing right up now. But at least, we know, well, we'll see the teams, but we're pretty confident at least he'll play every week. Whereas some of these other guys on the mid-bench, it's, not that confident at all, especially, we know Hustwaite's out and we'll see the other guys definitely a chance of being sub if they even are named in the team at all. So, yeah, I'm not sure how's yours look. We're just waiting for the teams to come in, but we can probably kick into it anyway. Let me have a quick look here. How's your SuperCoach team look in terms of trades and boosts remaining? Because I'm starting to sort of do a bit of maths in terms of how many more trades I might need to get out the guys I want to move on. And, it's getting a lot lower than what I would like.
Yeah, I am. I've still got, after this week, I'll have 20 trades and 1 boost left. So I've officially burnt through half my trades and I'm using my second last boost on this weekend. Haven't decided which premium I'm going to bring in this week. I sort of I'm looking at a midfield premium. Can't afford the Uber elites like your Butters and your Bontempellis, but I'm tossing up between Dunkley, who I think I prefer over Merritt this week, and get Merritt next week when he's got the Tigers. Just purely on matchup. Dunkley's playing Melbourne, and Merritt's got a tougher matchup where he doesn't score typically as well. But the one thing that I'm slightly concerned about is I've already got Lachie Neale and I've already got Will Ashcroft in my midfield. So adding Dunkley in there sort of throws it a little bit for me. I know that Ashcroft is a potential forward in a few weeks' time, but I don't want to really. My forward line is actually, it's like so done at the moment. I've got Petrarca and I've got Warner and I've got even Marich is scoring well. Then I've got Jackson down there, who's now the sole ruck. I've got Caleb Daniel at the moment. I've had to force into my flex position. I know he's a popular trade out this week, but he's had one score under 80 this year, so I'm happy to back him in another week. And he's got a good matchup this weekend as well, coming up against the Tigs. So I'm hoping that he sort of rebounds there. And then I got Bailey Smith and Jack McRae. So I got a lot of forwards. So I don't even need Ashcroft to get forward eligibility. But I guess we'll see if he holds on for now.
Yeah, I'm in a simple position. Probably one trade further down than you, but still the 2 boosts. But yeah, definitely happy to use one this week, which I think I'm going to have to. Now, we do have some teams, so let's get those up. And the Swans straight away have dropped gives me another bench donut in Ben Paton, but I think he scored 6 last week, so it's not exactly costing me all that much in terms of points. But interesting there, Riley Bice named is in the last position on the interchange. And if we read too much into that, but there is some risk there that he could be the sub. So it's another reason to potentially think about moving him on this week. And Carlton, as we've already touched on, comes to Koning out is absolutely huge. Pitnet comes in. Matt Carroll's back, so that's handy. That does give me a bench player, a live bench player. Jordan Boyd comes in as well. Lockie Cowan out injured. Blake Acres injured. I think most of those, Cowan I think might be 3 weeks or so, but Acres and the same to Koning, probably just the 1 week with a larynx injury, whatever. I'm not sure how exactly he sustained that, but yeah, do you think sort of the mad scramble is on to cover 0 on field now that we have best 23 or best 22 scoring of our 23 players? You can actually afford to have a 0, and it doesn't affect your score necessarily. It just means maybe that a rookie that might have been your 23rd sort of comes into your 22. So it probably will cost you a few points, but you're not topping a total 0 as such. So is De Koning a must trade, do you think, or can you just sort of park him for a week?
I don't think he's a must trade this week. It becomes interesting if Pitnet can hold his spot on return of De Koning. Like if he comes out and has an absolute blinder, or there's a couple more injuries, if you show some forward craft, like there will be a discussion as to whether he stays in the side now that he's in. That's the big thing. He was in the best 22 heading into the season, and they're going to play a 1-2 punch. But then he suffered that calf injury on the eve of the season. Went through, did his rehab, everything. But during that first 4 weeks of the year, 6 weeks of the year, it was when De Koning was playing his best footy. So why would you change something? I know the Blues weren't winning, but yeah, he's playing the best footy of his career. He's absolutely killing it. So why would you bring in another ruck, change the mix up there? So now that we'll get to see Pitnet, even if it is just for 1 week, it still gives us, the potential that maybe they go back to the 2 ruck system and give De Koning a chop out a little bit, because he has been fading in fourth quarters. It's his least productive quarter of games on average this season. So maybe he does need a couple of weeks of a chop out. So there is that concern for De Koning owners. So, personally, I'd hold him. I think he's still top 3 or 4 ruck in the competition. There is starting to be a gap built between sort of the Tristan Cherry and the Max Gawn and the rest. But he is still that top tier of at least the next rung down of, Darcy Cameron and Lloyd Meek and that type of player. So I think you're pretty safe holding him. He's probably going to be a decent flex at the end of the season if you do end up with Gawn and Cherry. But just a couple of things that don't make life a little bit easier for us. If anything, it makes it a bit more confusing and concerning to have potentially Pitnet there for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think that I saw some people, on Twitter saying, "Oh, will Carlton just rest him now? Their bye's only a few weeks away." I can't see them sitting him out for a month until their bye. Maybe that is a consideration if you look at your team and you're stacked with teams that have that bye in round 12, which is a tricky one. You got Carlton, the Bulldogs, Port, and North. I think are the 4. So that might be something that comes into your thinking. I know when I was looking at Caleb Daniel, that was sort of a bit of a something pushing me that maybe you would trade him out early before their bye anyway. But yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm still, because the temptation is I've just hated not having Gawn, watching him put up these enormous scores, and that, as you say, there's a 30, 40, 50 point gap some weeks between him and all the way down to De Koning. I do have Cherry, thank goodness, but just Gawn is so expensive, and are you spending 175,000 or something to get from turning up to him in one trade? It just means I'll probably miss out on, a Sinclair that I was otherwise looking to bring in this week, which, he might score nearly as well as him for a bit cheaper. So, yeah, a bit to think about, and there's not a heap of time, unfortunately, but we better keep on going through the teams. So we got Collingwood coming up in the next game versus Kawana, who is, of course, Adelaide this weekend in the Sir Doug Nichols round. And a few changes at the Pies. Maynard, Myercheck, and Pendlebury are in. Darcy Moore out. Lockie Schultz obviously out after that horrible incident that we saw earlier in the last weekend. And Markov is also out. And no change at the Crows. So I don't know if there's a heap to talk about there, certainly in terms of a SuperCoach point of view. We've got Peatling, who's been flying in the midfield with Matt Crouch out, but yeah, not much else to see from those two teams, I don't think.
No, nothing super exciting from a SuperCoach point of view. One thing that, from a footy perspective, that is relatively interesting is Braden Maynard's been listed as captain in Moore's absence. And Nick Dacos, obviously captain on Anzac Day. When Moore missed earlier in the season, he didn't get a recall up to captain again, which I thought was quite interesting, considering it was one of their best that day. But, no real SuperCoach relevance. I can't wait for Sid Draper to crack back in. I thought that with Matt Crouch coming out, he'd be getting a game, but unfortunately not, because he's still reasonably priced, and if you can avoid the sub-vest, he looks like a decent scorer.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just a couple of changes for Yatapulti playing Geelong. So Port Power, I guess, as they're ordinarily known, Willie Rioli comes back in after a week out. And with Evans as well, Kane Farrell's out and McEntee is omitted. So the interesting one for me there is that Dante Vicentini is the number one ruck again. He actually scored all right last week, 98 points, and he's about 230 or 240K, I think, in SuperCoach. I think you definitely want to have another look at him, although Geelong is a pretty good matchup for rucks. But I think he might be one we'll be looking at next week, say for a Matt Flynn. Could be a nice one to cash him in. And maybe ride another little bit of a money train there in the ruck if he can keep that number one ruck spot. I must admit, I don't have any real insight into what Port's doing. Might have to get our friends over at the Fandom's Lair to tell us if he has that role long term, but don't mind him as a prospect in SuperCoach. And for the Cats, just the two changes there. Jack Henry, Lawson Humphreys come in, and Ted Closey and Jai Clark, sort of perennial third and fourth guys on the bench, straight back out. Again, not a huge game in terms of SuperCoach news.
No Tom Stewart coming back into that
no,
side.
Still no, man. So how long's he missed now?
For someone who was, I think this is his second week in a row where hasn't been named, so third game missed. Where he's just club keeps saying he's a test and he's looking good, and I mean, classic Geelong. Who knows? Maybe he's a late in. Yeah. I guess we'll see. It's the back line. I think if you look at the side, Jed Buse, he scored relatively well last week. He's 172K. However, their back line is in absolute flux. The fact that he's held his spot when Humphreys and Henry have come back in is promising. If Stewart comes back next week, I'd imagine he's out, though. But maybe we can get a bit of insight as to exactly what that injury is and why he's not returning. But he, from all reports down at our team down at Geelong, he trained well during the week in their main session, so I'm surprised he hasn't been named. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, it's been a killer in terms of SuperCoach this year. Next game, the Giants versus Welliop, which, of course, usually Freo, and not too many changes there. One, Toby Bedford is in. He had, I think, a fitness test for an eye injury. Must have passed that, so it'd be interesting to see if he chases around a Caleb Sarong or an Andy Brayshaw. You'd think it'd probably be one of those two. For my sake, hopefully it's Sarong. Darcy Jones also back for the Giants. Stringer's out injured, and Delano, who just played his first game last week, is straight back out. And for the Dockers, just a like for like there, Sean Darcy out, replaced by Bailey Banfield. So, as you sort of hinted at, Luke Jackson gets a run as the first ruck, but and we know he has scored well in that role before. I mean, he scored all right this year anyway, but probably just a 1 week for Darcy, I think, is what we're hearing.
I think that's the feel for it. Ideally as a Jackson owner, hopefully it's a little bit longer, but I think it's just going to be one or maybe two. But he's been one that's is not great with the injury prevention. So hopefully it's a short-term sort of turnaround for him, and we can get him back into the side playing some footy.
Yep. Now the other Saturday night game, the Dogs and Essendon playing at Marvel. And the Bulldogs have omitted Caleb Poulter and Harvey Gallagher, and Taylor Durais back, and Arthur Jones as well. And for the Bombers, just the one change, Lewis Hayes, shocking ACL injury in his first game. probably from a Supercoach point of view, he's looking pretty good too. But he's obviously out, and Jaden Laverty comes in for him. So the big one here, Supercoach-wise, is, of course, Sardell Hawley. Last week dodged the sub-vest for the first time. Came out, flew out of the blocks, had about 30-something points at quarter time. Then he slowed up, but still scored in the 60s and shapes as still a good rookie option for us, about the 155K mark after playing a couple of games. But he's named on the bench, and he's in that infamous final spot on the bench. I mean, because they put him back into the sub? Surely not.
Well, if you look at that extended bench, or sorry, not the extended bench, the bench with the 5 players, Laverty won't be the sub. Shield was the sub last week, so does he cop it 2 weeks in a row? Hobbs has been a sub candidate a little bit, but hasn't really. I don't think he's copped it once this year. Maybe one game, and then Setterfield's been cracking since he's been back in the side. So it's really between El Hawley and Shield, you'd think, and it makes me nervous. Yeah,
I mean, if he, oh man, I don't know how long we'd have time to. We probably wouldn't, because I was just trying to think of who the other rookie options would be if that disaster struck, and probably Cooper Simpson looked all right in his first game for the year for the Dockers last week, and I'm just checking back on those teams, and he's named on the bench for them, so he's kept his spot in the team. He's I think about a 117K forward, maybe 119K forward in Supercoach, but they play on the Saturday afternoon before the Essendon game. So
and also Joe Fonte,
here's all over
the Giants. He's the other one, and he's also, I think he's named last on the bench, and they're playing earlier, so it doesn't help us that much either. He's
on the bench as well, yeah. Man, and he's 160K too. Although I suppose that's similar to El Hawley, but problems. Richmond and North Melbourne play in the first game on the Sunday. So extended squads, just 3 ins for the Tigers coming off a win. Jaden Short's back after being very late out last week. Campbell Gray potentially gets in the shot, and Jasper Alga could be another debutant, but he's on the extended bench there. Trainer and Short also on the extended bench. And at the Kangaroos, they've got, again, just the 3 ins, Zach Fisher, Will Dawson and Will Phillips, who, as far as I can tell, all pretty much go to the bench. So one interesting talk today from Kangaroos training was that Sheasel, who's been sort of back in the half-back line for the last few weeks and scored pretty well, was playing, training more midfield, even a bit of forward in match simulation, and he's been named on the ball. And Caleb Daniel named at centre half-back. So potentially one thing that, hurt Caleb Daniel scoring the last couple of weeks was Sheasel going back there. So maybe if Harry gets back out of the back line, it helps Caleb get a bit more of the footy. What are you thinking? Is where do you stand on Caleb Daniel? So break even of about 120. So he's made nearly 200K for us this year, but he's starting to lose some of that value. Do you sort of want to get out now while you can sort of get the maximum value for him, or sort of long term you think he's a decent play? Because it is risky trading out guys, even like a Riley Bice, who we think are at least best 22 players, and bringing in someone like an El Hawley, who we're not confident even this week that he won't be the sub.
Yeah, I'm sticking firm with Caleb Daniel. I know his break even is about 30 points higher than his season average, which is usually a good indicator that if you're looking to ship someone off, then now's the time. But Richmond this week have, they concede a fair bit to rebounding defenders. I know that Sheasel has hurt him a little bit, but he's gone sub 80 once, and that was against Brisbane down in Tassie last weekend. He's gone 115 plus 3 times, and he sort of usually sits in that high 80s to low 90s range. So it's not a bad sort of area to be in. He'll drop a little bit of cash, but I'm happy to sort of hold him, either be one of the last upgrades, or be a perennial sort of mid-forward flex option, move him around a little bit, and if he's an M9 or a D7 at the end of the season, I'm not going to be too upset with that.
Yeah, fair. I mean, he's certainly been in many of the different options that I've come up with. He's featured in there. I think you can move him on with that high break even, and as I say, he's got the buy in round 12 too, which could be a problem for many people. But yeah, I don't hate the idea of keeping him either, as long as he's not dropped by the Kangaroos. Then if they're going to back him in, then I think he's going to score better than he did last week, most weeks for sure. Even the couple of weeks before that, where people were starting to worry about him, he was still scoring 89, 90, which isn't terrible at all, certainly at his price. So you could go either way on him. Brisbane v Nam is the middle game, I guess, on the Sunday. A few changes. Interesting name there on the ins for Brisbane. Kitty Coleman is back. Named on the extended bench. This would be his first game in about 18 months after doing his knee in the opening round last year, I think. So he was absolutely flying coming into last season. We know his grand final the year before was great, and then his preseason was great. So he's about 260K. If he can get a couple of games under his belt in Supercoach, he's one we're really going to like. But yeah, we definitely want to see him in the flesh and see what role he has. Whether it affects Dane Zorko or not will be interesting too. But Dev Robertson, haven't seen his name too many times this year, but he's on the extended bench for the Lions on Sunday. Gallup gets another go there, and Connor McKenna, and Jared Berry is out injured with concussion. So he won't play, but and they'll chop that bench. They've named Levi Ashcroft on the extended bench again, as I think they have pretty much every single week. And for Nam, few changes here. Melksham in, Bailey Laurie gets another crack potentially. Blake Howes, a rookie star for us early last year. Tom Fullerton. Now, Tom Fullerton's price, I think he's worth about $107,000 in Supercoach after he lost money from his starting value last week. I think he scored 1. So sort of a bit of the state of the rookies. I was scratching around and he came up. Harrison Petty in and Aiden Johnson back. Might nearly almost be a bubble game for him if he actually got a game, but he's only on the extended bench. So we'll see the final teams tomorrow, final squads. Jacob Van Rooyen's been dropped. Kai Tholstrup dropped, and Matt Jefferson also dropped. So, bit going on there at the D's, and Clayton Oliver named on ball, but potentially tagging one of the Lions mids.
Yeah, it's been I thought it was pretty rough for Melbourne. I know they didn't score a whole heap, but they were pretty close to Hawthorn the entire game last week until, a 20-minute patch in the last quarter really ripped the game out of their hands. So to drop, 3 forwards is a bit stiff, but I guess you got to bring in change somewhere. Who do you think Oliver goes to? I'd imagine it's straight to Lachie Neale.
Yeah,
he's in a tagging role again. I'm personally not a fan of. I don't think it brings him into the game at all. Just trying to be defensive minded. You're paying him a bloke $1.7 million a year, and he wants out, and you make him play a defensive limiting role. Just let him go get the ball.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan, especially considering I have Lachie Neale just brought him a couple of weeks ago. So, but he does seem the obvious target to me. I mean, Dunkley does a heap of damage, but doesn't sort of seem that taggable. I mean, Hugh McCluggage, maybe he's had a great year, but he's pretty quick. I'm not sure if
see Oliver
Clary would go. Exactly. So Lockie's probably the obvious one.
Away from just running through the pastures, and Oliver just struggling to keep up there.
Now, the final game of the round, the late Sunday game, and I'm going to butcher these, unfortunately, but Woolwich Maria, I'm going to muck that up. So, the Saints and the Eagles, we'll say, and Euroke is is St Kilda, I know that, but so a few changes at West Coast. Archer Reid outmanaged. Oscar Allen's back. Bo Allen is back, potentially on the bench there. Clay Hall back in for people who've held him, and Jack Williams as well. But so, we're looking at that extended bench. Who knows? We'll see tomorrow what the Eagles do. Tom Gross is on the extended bench. Bo Allen's on the extended bench. Clay Hall's on the extended bench. Sandy Brock's on the extended bench. So lots of Supercoach interest there. Elijah Hewitt at least is named on the field. Would you take a stab at who makes the cut and who's the sub out of that bunch?
I would say Sandy Brock plays because McGovern hasn't come back in, although Oscar Allen might negate that. I'd go Brock, Cole, Gross, Brockman, Hutchison. So I don't reckon Bo Allen gets back in.
Yeah, Gross gets a full game this week, surely.
Yeah, he's got to get a full game. He was great. I know that there were a couple of moments that he'd love to have back, a little bit more urgency on that ball coming inside 50 when he got caught. But I thought his last quarter was outstanding for a guy who'd just been injected into the game. And what you want them to do is take the game on and use their legs, and he did that. And he got caught a couple of times, but collected a fair bit of the pill in a 15-minute patch.
Yep. Yeah, no, I thought he was pretty impressive. And Matt Flynn named as the number 1 ruckman again, with Bailey Williams named at full forward. So the 2 rucks, sort of not ideal if you want Flynn scoring in Supercoach. But last week, his ruck time wasn't hurt that much. Bailey Williams basically just played as a forward and with a bit of a chop out in the ruck. So don't think that's the worst idea. Flynn's break even is like these other guys. He's starting to get up there, but probably feel confident holding him for a couple more weeks if we need to. And maybe it's the Dronte switch next week. And for the Saints, again, very interesting extended bench here, but they've made a few changes. McLennan comes in and goes straight into the back line to replace Dougal Howard. Mason Wood's back. Toby Travalia named again. Schoenmaker named, and Harry Boyd named, but that's he sort of always named a bit of a backup ruckman on the extended bench just in case. And Dougal Howard and Liam Stocker are out injured. But the interchange is Collard, Travalia, Philippou, Schoenmaker, Harry Boyd, Hugo Garcia, Hugh Boxall, who's on the bubble, and Liam O'Connell. So, yeah, I don't think Boyd will play. Travalia, probably not. Oh, geez, out of the others, though, it's really hard to know.
Yeah, I don't like this one. I really, just looking at this extended bench, it's just a mess. Like, you want Boxall hopefully holds, but I don't think he was outstanding last week. Travalia was great in the VFL. I don't know if he gets a call up. Filippo was good in his first game back. He's getting dropped. Garcia has been pretty handy. Liam O'Connell is a rookie listed player and is actually not. I mean, he isn't scoring that well, but he's a warm body. And at this point of the season, God forbid, Sardell Hawley is a laid out, or is the sub. You could swing to him and hope that he plays a full game. I don't think he's really a sub candidate, but he's not going to score that well. So maybe you're better having Earl Hawley over him and hope that he comes in at halftime or a bit before because of an injury or something. So yeah, it's not a fun bench to look at, especially for the last game of the round. Especially if you're relying on a Garcia or a Boxall or someone like that to be your last player on the field.
Yeah, and if you think you're bringing in a Boxall on the bubble, I'd be pretty wary. Even if he makes the cut tomorrow, which is line ball, I think he's very high sub risk. And as you say, we won't know till sort of 3:30 on Sunday afternoon. So, very too late to really do too much about it if he is. So, that's not a great bench to look at, unfortunately. But that's the teams, and plenty of interesting news there for SuperCoach. We've got some questions which we'll get to in a sec, but we do have to, of course, do our best bets of the week, powered by Better. Oh, we can do that at the end. But Matt, what have you got? We've been, hitting the mark the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we've turned in a little bit of cash, which has been nice. I'm looking at two players, young players that I love. One's my draft team, one's my classic team, and they've got good matchups this week. So Ryan Marriage, I'm going for 25 touches. Obviously, coming up.
Got him over the line last week, so.
Yeah, he was good last week as well. He's had 25 last few weeks, but he's got the Saints this week, who are not the best against defenders, and especially rebounding defenders. They typically let them chip it around a little bit. And then I'm going Georgie Wardlaw against the Tigers to Tigers. Oh, they're North.
Yes, yeah,
yeah, the Tigers. Sorry, yeah, but they're to have 20 touches, midfield mix. I think he's working his minutes back up. He's been pretty good since his return from that hamstring injury, and he's and the Tigers concede a fair few disposals to midfielders. So I'm pairing those two together, and it's paying out $3.50. So that's my little multi for the week.
All right. Well, I'm going for the normally your territory, the Thursday night game. You kick things. And someone we didn't mention, he might come up in the questions, but there's been a little bit of talk around him in SuperCoach circles this week, is one of your Hawks, Chankworth Giath, who's absolutely flying the last couple of weeks, and he's about 350K or something in SuperCoach. I would not be going there just because his injury history is pretty horrible. I don't expect him to keep that kind of scoring up, but I think he can have a good game. Gold Coast Suns have given up certainly more SuperCoach points to defenders than any other team. So you can get $2.90 for him to have 25 touches. Again, this week he had 32 last week and 25 the week before. So I reckon he can keep it going for one more week. And if you wanted to pair that with John Noble, who's having a great season for the Gold Coast Suns, he's averaging over 25 touches a game, and he's had at least that in 4 of his last 5 games. And you can get $2.10 for him to have 25 plus. So pair them together and you get $5.50, which I don't mind at all. But what is gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen, 1-800-858-858, or visit the website gamblinghelponline.org.au. We'll get to questions in a sec, but Matt, any thoughts on captains? I'm guessing if you have one or both of Max Gawn or Tristan Cherry, that'd be pretty high in your consideration.
Yeah, I'll have Cherry on the Sunday game for me this week as my captain. Vice captain, I'm not sold on. I've actually had a shocking run of captains the last few weeks. So Lockie Neal was my captain last week. I think I had Dacos the week before, and it's been pretty ugly. So I need to sort it out. I'm looking at Chad Warner on Friday night against the Blues. Carlton's a slow-moving, sort of contested style midfield. Chad Warner is an explosive sort of dash from the contest. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with him. I don't think they'll send a tag to him either. So I'm looking at him. If Sheasel lines up on the halfback flank, that would be a quick little pivot there that I might be doing away from Cherry. But I think I'll back in Cherry there. But I think if you don't have him, Sheasel's not bad. But that one's going to be a late call. I don't love my midfielders this week. If you've got Dunkley, he's probably a good option.
Yeah, I like him.
Considering we think Neil's going to get the tag from Oliver. Bailey Smith against Port. I feel like he could, Port's given up some decent scores to midfielders this year, and I don't think he'll get a tag either. And then Luke Jackson is the sole ruck coming up against Kieran Briggs. I think is another one that could be a little tickler as well if you like playing dangerously. But they're heavy underdogs against the Giants, and typically you score better when your team's winning. So that one is one that is fraught with a little bit of danger as well. I do like your Ryan Marriage boy as well. He did well last week.
Yeah, threw him out last week.
And thrown the BC on him, but now he's scoring well. Give him the captaincy. Why not?
Well, I think the good thing is that last game, I don't mind him. And then a few Saints, I don't know what my trades are doing at the moment, but at one stage I had Jack Sinclair coming in. I think he'd be good as a backup captain, or even a Jack McRae. Could score pretty well, halfbacks and midfielders, everybody pretty much scores well generally against the Eagles. So I think they're pretty handy backups if you've got a Cherry or a Gawn. I'd certainly be going there. Yeah, it's a bit annoying that Sheasel and Cherry obviously playing the same game, because I do think Sheasel is a good shout, but you can't go past Cherry in the form that he's in, and Nank is giving up some points in the ruck. It's just a matter of the timing of some of the overlap going on. You just have to be on top of things in these games on the Sunday. With the loopholes and such, but most of us, or a lot of us, have Harry Boyd as well, which is really handy because he plays in that last game, so we can use him as a potential captaincy loop if we need to. But you want to set that up early, make sure you've got him on the field and Tom De Koning on the bench. And normally you would say just make sure you put the emergency on TDK, but I guess it doesn't really matter this week.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if you've got Pitnet, captain him.
Bring him straight in.
If you have Pitnet, you've got problems.
Someone might have him on a bench in draft or something like that. Now, a couple of quick questions before we wrap things up. I mean, this is the question of the evening, really. Jalen asking Gawn for TDK. I mean, if you can make it work, then yes. But I'm starting to. I mean, that's the thing. I was pulling my team apart to do this myself this afternoon, but now even doing this show, I'm starting to think, is this really the right idea? Because it means I miss out on Sinclair, who I really like. And I also, all that money, which I could use, for another upgrade next week or the week after, you're spending it all on one player. So it's a big call. And I mean, who knows, in 2 or 3 weeks, if it turns out TDK's, a bit playing hurt, or he, has to share the ruck, then, you might turn out that this was the right play. But I mean, Tristan asking if TDK, missing 2 of the next 3, injury in the bye. Well, I suppose that's the thing. The bye is round 12, so it's already round 10. So could they be tempted to rest him for round 11 but then the bye again? Then he's basically missing a month of footy. That seems like a lot to just have him sitting out.
I hadn't thought of the buys. This is why we've got to get guys like Tristan on this show. I don't know why I'm here. It certainly does make it a bit more interesting if you do have him, and especially in this case where you have 2 of the top 2 rucks in the comp in Gawn and Cherry, and you're tossing up whether it's worthwhile holding him or not. We should have asked Vossi today. He was up for media. Should have got him on the phone. It certainly opens my thought process up to trading him a little bit more, to be honest. Just. Not even if he's missing next week, but just the fact that he's going to miss the week after. Because then if he misses next week as well, like if it just doesn't come up on Wednesday and they're like, maybe let's just give him a 3 weeks off, then maybe they do that. I don't think they'd play him through the VFL for minutes, but they'll play a match sim over the bye or something, some sort of match practice. So,
And if Pito goes well.
Trade him. Yeah, trade him. Get rid of him.
All right,
I've changed my tune.
I thought it was maybe going the other way, but I think in this situation that Tristan is here, where if you've already got Gawn and Cherry and TDK sitting in your flex, that gives you a lot more options. You can go TDK down to a discounted, down to a Sinclair or something like that. So I don't mind that as an option either. Darcy wondering if Kitty coming in, would you avoid Zorko based on Kitty Coleman coming back into the team?
If you were sold on Zorko to bring in this week, I don't think Kitty coming in is going to he's been out of the game for 18 months. He's played a little bit of VFL footy to find some touch back. I don't think he's going to come in and absolutely dominate. It might take him 6 to 8 weeks to really feel, back at the level. So I think it'll be fine to go with Zorko if you were sold on him, and that's fine. If you were 50-50 on him and you weren't sure between him and a Lockie Whitfield or a Bailey Dale, then I'd be more leaning away from Zorko. I'm avoiding Zorko, and I have the last couple of years to my detriment, just because he's, in my mind, he's old and slow, and he gets
surely he's going to do a Hemi at some stage.
And surely, and he's the most durable he's ever been. I don't understand football, but yeah. So if you're like me and you're not sold on him, then I'd be avoiding him, and this sort of because it just adds to the pile of the reasons why I don't want to take him. But if you're locked into him, then I don't think Kitty's going to make that much of a difference, especially early days.
Yeah, no, I'll still like Zorko. It's an interesting one. Big man asking Sardell Hawley or Matt Carroll. So Carroll comes back in. He's 181K already. And given that he's not scoring heaps of points, I don't know if you'd want to be spending that much money, but Hawley's...
Carroll's a great chance at the sub as well.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So I don't think either are the beauty of... You could start with Carroll, and if he's named as the sub on Friday night, then you pivot to...
Then get out.
To Sard, and then you make a decision on Saturday night what you do further. Because then if Sard's named the sub, then you could go to like a Liam O'Connell or someone. But it's a rock and a hard place for those two, because they're both as likely to be the sub. They're both as likely to get dropped any given week. So that's probably the smart play, is starting with Carroll, and if he's named to get a full game, then you take the safety of it. And if he's sub, then you move to Sard.
Cowan out for I think maybe 3 weeks, so it does give Carroll hopefully a decent chance to get 2 or 3 games in at least before again he has that same bye. So then we've got a question here, Staff Hooks asking Caleb Daniel, I think that is, to Philippou, then TDK up to Cherry. He's chasing rank. I don't mind that. Philippou on the extended bench, but I'm sure he gets a game and a full game at that. I don't mind that at all. If that gives you enough money to do that trade, I think. If you don't have Cherry, I think that's probably more urgent than, I've got Cherry and I'm thinking, do I trade TDK to Gawn? Just Cherry is a little bit cheaper, but he won't be for long. His price is going absolutely through the roof. So, I'd be a bit more urgent in getting him. Will Canterbury asking Gawn and Cherry in the ruck, is TDK to Visentini or Briggs in flex viable? I certainly wouldn't go Briggs. Would you go a week early on Visentini?
I certainly wouldn't go Briggs. I had Briggs for 1 week this season, and I'm not proud to say that. That was not a fun week. I think he scored like 30. Visentini will probably score well against Geelong, and then he'll probably stay in for another week or two. So it's probably not the worst shout. I'd want some form of cover. Tom Sims, if you've got him on your bench line instead of Harry Boyd, or then that could make it a whole lot more viable. But it sort of scares me that I know that he's not a rookie, but the fact that he's certainly not going to make money this week, and he's no guarantee to play next week, sort of makes him a bit nervous. But if he plays well, scores well, and then next week he's named again, then it'd be a whole lot more appealing. So sure, why not? Go Visentini. I would go Visentini over Briggs, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, the worry just is that Visentini, if he I just don't really know how secure his spot is in the team. And if he got dropped in 2 weeks, then what do you do then? He's in a massive world of hurt. So, I think next week might be a slightly different story if we have a bit more intel on him. Darcy Spence saying TDK straight to Tim English versus the Bombers, and he's going to VC him. Actually, don't hate that as a one just for this week, because English is playing Goldstein, who's we've seen some big scores against him in the ruck. But do you want English for the whole season? I'm not sure about that. That's where it gets tricky, because it's just Gawn and Cherry are so far ahead of the rest of the pack, but also so much more expensive. Thoughts on Visentini? We've already answered that, and just maybe we'll finish off with Flag Blues asking one for you, Foz, El Hawley or Jed Buse?
I wouldn't be touching Buse until Stewart's back into the side, and Buse is still in there. So I can't believe that Buse held his spot this week with Lawson Humphries coming back into the side. But there's still one big omission from that Cat side, and it's Tommy Stewart. And I mean, we don't really know what's going on with his knee at the moment. He clearly has something wrong with it.
Yeah,
I guess that's next week's problem. But once again, Buse not on the bubble, so I wouldn't be looking at it. I'd be going El Hawley, and I'd be fine with that. And then, if Buse plays well again, and then Stewart's out again, and he's named on the field again, then I'd be more willing to take that risk. But while he's only played one game, I wouldn't be touching him.
And again, he plays in one of those 2 4-15 games on Saturday, so he plays before El Hawley. So it's not someone you could pivot to if we found out that El Hawley was the sub, unless they announced that early. So unfortunately, that doesn't quite work either. So yes, it is a very tricky week in Supercoach, and we've got about 20 minutes before tonight's game. Fortunately, TDK isn't involved, so it gives you a little bit more time to try and nut out how this is going to work if he is someone you want to try and trade out. But Foz, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me again. Love it.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Good luck. I hope you can figure out these trades. We'll make them work, and good luck with your team this weekend, and we'll catch you again soon.